Introduction. In an organization, leadership is made up of a number of procedures that are either created by the firm or adjusted to constantly changing circumstances. And identifying one personality type can help identify a few advantages and shortcomings, as well as areas where one should concentrate his or her effort to be his or her greatest effective self. Problem statement. Leadership or a good leader is hard to define, but the group of people who are being led know whether it is or it is not an effective leadership, especially based on a crucial matter such as decision making that important in reflecting individuals' maximal performance, which believe to create a person or particularly a leader that will have a good decision making. Then, other than that, personality reflects one behavior, because it is important in creating a good leader that will create an effective leadership. There are 3 research questions and research objectives in our assignment, which is, for the research question, firstly is, what is the relationship between leadership and personality? Second, how does personality play a role in providing effective leadership? And the last one is, how does personality affect leadership style and effectiveness? And for the research objective is, firstly, to justify the relationship between leadership and personality. Second, to analyze the role of personality in providing effective leadership. And the last one is to analyze ways of personality affect the leadership style.
Assalamualaikum and hi, I'm Aina Najib and I'll continue the presentation with this section. This section explains some type of leaderships and type of personalities to give insight to discussion afterward. Alright, in this world, some might see problem as something that will either burden or distract, but not to leaders, as Lopez quoted that leaders see well beyond the obvious, in which the most effective leaders approach problems through a lens of opportunity. It is always said that leader will have its own vision and none of them will be as common people have. Like what's stated by a study of management study guide, where it is noted that true leaders have a vision, that is, they have a potential to view the present as it is and to invent a future culminating out of the present. As we have learned about 3 theories and approaches that started to bring out the answer of how leadership stands and comes from, there are 3 theories that interpret leadership differently from each person's view, which are: 1. Great man theory assumes that leaders are born and not made. 2. Trait theories believe that leadership sought personality, social, etc. And 3. Behavior theory that attempts to describe leadership through the leader's action. These are the theories that interconnected with each other, where it explains that leaders can be recognized by many specifications such as personality, in which will be the main point to be looked into this case study. Moving to the important part of this study, case study is analyzing some of the types of personalities that exist in this world. Interestingly, this is the area where it will show that there are many types of personalities coming from various studies and research by different individual or a group of people. To be mentioned, the trait theories also in group with this part of case study. The trait theories observe that there are characteristics of traits that make a particular person recognized as a leader, such as ambitious and energy, desire to lead, honesty and integrity, self-confidence, and etc. Thus, we found through this theory that personality influences the quality of leadership. In addition, we have the ISC trait theory and the other one, the famous one, the 16 personality types. This theory has 8 socionics that being the indicator to measure one's personality, which are extraversion, sensing, thinking, judgment, introversion, intuition, feeling, and perception. To simply explain, it is a combination of psychology and sociology term which able to predict the character of a person by examining the information sharing and psychological compatibility of that one person before categorize him or her in one collective group. There are 16 different groups which came from the 8 socionics, where it will combine 4 major socionics that a person has. in relating to this case study, there is one statement by Crystal that as an ENTJ, Winston tends to be charismatic, direct and logical. To conclude this part, there is no doubt that there are many more studies related to types of personalities. Moving to the next part, which is the issue of discussion, where in this part, it will give introduction of the case that this writing will cover. A leader will find many types of people with different backgrounds, religion, races, opinion, perspective, and etc. Yet, they will always need to use their personality and leadership styles to manage and feed the people to only have one goal to achieve together. From the fact of so many differences here, we can admit, yes, there are so many elements to be considered in creating a good leader with effective leadership. Hence, in this writing, we will have three main findings to be highlighted on, which are 1. To justify the relationship between leadership and personality, 2. To analyze the role of personality in providing effective leadership, and 3. To analyze ways of personality affects the leadership style. Thus, by pointing out the main findings in this case study, Sir Winston Churchill will be the subject to this research. By having him as the subject, this case study will focus on this one great leader to be the main character to be in the case discussion by giving an inauguration of him in the part of background of issue and an insight discussions in the analysis part, particularly to find answers to each research questions as well as to fulfill to each research objective that have mentioned above. That's all from me. Let's hear from my friend.
Hello everyone, my name is Mathura Suparmaniam and my metric number is 27034A. Now I'm going to explain about background of the issue, which is the attractiveness of Sir Winston Churchill in terms of leadership and personality cannot be denied to be chosen as our main character in this case study. Sir Winston Churchill was the former United Kingdom Prime Minister who was born on 30 November 1874 in Belham Palace, Oxfordshire, and he was died at the age of 91. And it was on 24 January 1965 in London. Churchill is the son of Lord Randolph Churchill, which is the seventh Duke of Marlborough's son, and he was descended from a long history of English aristocrats and statesmen. Churchill got his education at the boarding school in Ascot, Brinton, and lastly at Harrow School. He first joined the army in 1897, taking advantage of his mother's power, that is lobbying the Prime Minister, Lord Salisbury, and Army Commander-in-Chief, Sir Herbert Kitchener, to move him from India to Egypt. As he went to many wars, especially for the war that happened in India in 1897, which helped him to create a book with the title of Story of the Malaccan Field Force. During the war in Egypt 1898, he was deployed to Kitchener's army to retake Sudan from Mahdi's armies who had been in control for more than a decade. Churchill had a long walk to strike his sword into an iron dispatch box, as he put it. As a result, he left the army in 1899 to run a parliament, and Churchill was elected as a parliament minister for Oldham in 1900, but switching sides to the Liberal Party in 1904 from Conservative Party. Next is about contribution of his leadership. Winston's goal since he was a child has been achieved where his father had failed, and he did it. And he became one of the famous leaders in World War. He rose through the ranks of the army and navy after a rocky start at Sanders and deployments to numerous overseas missions. He eventually made his way into politics and became one of the most successful military commanders in history. In 1900, Churchill was elected to the British Parliament as the Conservative Party representative for Oldham, Manchester City. During his time as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, from 1940 until 1950s, Winston Churchill demonstrated crucial leadership qualities. Winston Churchill had a number of attributes, attitudes, and behaviors associated with a charismatic and transformational leader, according to leadership theories. Next, leadership was able to carry out his responsibilities in a democratic manner rather than as a totalitarian ruler. His remarkable communication skills, creativity, and trustworthiness, which made him one of the history's good leaders, we all can learn from him. and he continues to be an incredible great inspiration for others. The leadership traits that we can learn from him are communication, reputation, passion, vision, courage, and action. For example, Churchill was well known as a visible leader during the war. He was frequently seen touring factories, bombing homes, and interacting with citizens. Next, for the reputation, Churchill was an outspoken critic, and when he predicted the impending war in the UK, he was criticized for being a warmonger. In May 1940, Winston Churchill was appointed Prime Minister, and Churchill was a man who put his heart and soul into his work. He was war correspondent, a soldier, a writer, and statesman in addition to being a war journalist. Regardless of his positive and negative critics, he was dedicated to betterment of his country. Moreover, he was vision great. Leaders have visions, are not afraid, share them with their people. Clear goals are just as important as any equipment you bring to a war, and they are a tremendous tool to have in times of difficulty and confusion. That's all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum and hi, my name is Mohamad Aiman bin Rosidi, metric number 273709. In this part of analysis, there are three major points which are the relationship between leadership and personality, how personality play a role in providing effective leadership, and to what extent does personality affect the leadership style. The case study will complete as the objective with the various explanation and examples to make it easily to understand. Leadership and personality are two crucial matters which are needed by a leader because this will determine how the result of decision making can be in certain situations. Firstly, certain contexts and nation culture involve specific personality quality and a leadership style in regard of standard of followers. In other words, a leader need to have a good personality trait in the leadership style to his or her followers, like leader with a clear vision to encourage. For example, Winston Churchill had a massive vision in winning during World War II for his country Britain, and he became a clear vision for his followers to win the battle. Prime Minister Winston Churchill praised the V for the victory movement, so he began adopting the V hand signs he used to make a palm gesture when he was younger. Thus, the introduction of this signal show how a good personality trait of Churchill, and was also a good guideline for his followers to adopt it in order to victory movement for the Great Britain. Visionary leader foresee what is come, both possibility and challenge. In addition, a good personality traits of a leader will lead him or her to application of good leadership style with personality and leadership are connected together. For instance, the leader with the charismatic traits will tend to apply collective decision making. It can be best for the follower to put the collective interest as the first priority. In this study, Winston Churchill became the subject who had the personality trait of charismatic leader and guided his followers as a team battling enemies during the Second World War. He was able to carry out his responsibility democratically rather than dictatorial tyrannies. Winston Churchill became Prime Minister in May 1940. He recognized the value of speech making in rousing hostile country. Being a charismatic leader like Winston Churchill also means that the leader needs to show how a good attitude towards speech making, which in other words is needed to be value-wise communication. In book of Churchill's Secret War, he had overcome criticism for his language, rose to become a Prime Minister and influenced thousands of people. Besides, personality traits correlated to different systems of organizational leadership. They show that every functional organization or nation requires a leader to have particular personality traits to attain success. For instance, Winston Churchill knew that the necessity of value of speech, of communication in influence people in a very corner of Aliah's force. Winston Churchill had democratic leadership in which it influenced his people to make a great decision making. He advocated for a democratic system that liberal rather than socialist. Other of Tory democracy in the Victorian liberal had an indelible imprint of his perspective. Churchill has enormous faith in construction of democracy with the finest leadership. Hence, a nation or organization need a leader who can work orderly with a suitable personality traits in a certain system, whereas the type of leadership apply just like Winston Churchill, who enforced on the democratic leadership on his people and nation. Thank you.
I will present about how personality can affect and play a role in providing a very effective leadership in case of Winston Churchill himself. We can see in his personality, he has 4 different type of personality that very much impact how effective his leadership throughout his time. First, we can see is high conscientiousness. Next, willingness to be open. Next is high extraversion, and next is a dominant leader. So for his high conscientiousness, he is very reliable, self-disciplined, and also a very thorough person during his time as a leader. For example, during World War I, we can see that he was the first to organize and prepare to fight against Germany army during that time, while also directly after the fall of Antwerp, which is in the Belgium, in order to rescue the Belgian army who are trying to run away from the Germany army during that time. Next, we can see his willingness to be open, as his personality can allow himself to be more imaginative, also a bit more adventurous, and also unconventional to achieve a goal. We can see that during World War II, he aligned with the Soviet Union in order to fight against Germany, despite he himself was anti-socialist, which is a very definition of enemy of Soviet Union. Next, we can see that his high extraversion can always seen as a people who trying to seek interaction with each other, but also makes people love to talk to him as well. For example, during his famous speech, Blood, Toil, Tears and Sweat, he showed his very commitment to himself and also to his nation, while calling out others, which is his own citizen, to fight alongside him against the Germany during World War II. Next, we can see that he is a very dominant leader as well. As we can see, he value interpersonal dominance and even very a competitive person himself. For example, Winston Churchill unite every major political party in the UK directly after the resignation of Neville Chamberlain, which is the previous Prime Minister before him, in order to fight against the Germany during World War II himself.
Hi, for my part, to what extent that the personality affect leadership styles. The topic is leadership and personality of Winston Churchill. My name is Aphithandunlathon, phatchanok. My matrix number 2423 and 22. It depends on the job, like every personality is different. Every position is different as well. Knowing your personality type can tell you some of your strengths and weaknesses. And it can help you focus on being the most successful yourself. Plus, having a good personality can apply some kind of work. Preparation for work is ready to take responsibility for all types of work, ready to face many problems and obstacles, including being ready to interact and talk with others. Like he says, his charismatic leadership styles give him vision and focus on bigger pictures, which allow him to gain victory of his nations. To be a great leader, we must have a good communication skills when most British people are different. He is good with his high experience. Speech has encouraged people to have those in him. With the use of simple but precise language, he was able to deliver powerful speeches to his country that everyone could understand. So the people of British could identify with him and trust his visions. For example, after the fall of France, Churchill was worried that the French would send their battleship to the Germans. As a result, he began to attract the Battle of Orange. 6 ships were destroyed, and more than 1,000 French soldiers were killed. This is a symbol of Churchill's seriousness to continue. No surrender, says Winston Churchill stood up for a nullification rally. Even if the chance of winning is very small, he was brave and optimistic. In time of despair, the British looked up to him to reassure him as an immutable wall, forever confidence and protects comfort, forever. In the conclusion, Churchill started his career from the bottom that it started from being a normal army. Then he involved himself in many international war missions, and then later he joined politics. Churchill displayed critical leadership characteristics throughout his time as Prime Minister, and according to leadership theory, Churchill possessed several characteristics, attitudes, and behavior that link with charismatic and transformative leaders in motivating hostile nations, and because of this he proved to others that someone who is a strong leader